the way our Shringāra poetic corpus has exploded threadbare. When you look at the idea of waiting, what exactly is this waiting? Why is she waiting? Especially Alaṅkāraśāstra has exploded to the minutest, human study. Whatever you seek is the ultimate truth. How sincerely you seek it, love and how much devotion you seek it, that decide intensity of the sakshatkar. Idea of tapa, which is part of the idea of viraha, that is the intense, the longing. And if you see the idea of tapa or intense penance, both have the same root. This whole waiting is that. It's being misinterpreted as a gender thing, and it has nothing to do with the mundane idea of why should I wait or why should I not wait. If you do not wait, then you do not experience the joy of the union.
Namaste, welcome to Bodha. The topic of today's episode, today's discussion is the idea of waiting, which is found different types of expression, myriad expressions in literary traditions, performing traditions across the world. But when it comes to Indian literature, Kavya, Itihasa, Natya, and different performing traditions, performing arts, it finds a deeper significance, a deeper meaning. And to talk to us about it today, we have with us Dr. Anupama Kylash. She is a practitioner of Indian dance. She's an academic. She has written various papers and conducted workshops on Itihasa, Puran, Kavya, Prabandha, Natya, Poetics, Aesthetics. Anupama ji, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Nivedita. Thank you for having me, and lovely seeing you again.
It's lovely seeing you as well. So, Anupama ji, if we can, how is this idea of waiting defined in the Indian literary tradition? And is there a name for it? How do you define it? And then maybe we can move on to some of the examples, how this finds expression in Itihasa, Puran, and Kavya. When it comes to the Indian cultural consciousness and actually spiritual consciousness as well, since we talk about its metaphysical import as well.
Yeah. So when we look at the idea of definition, the Nāṭyaśāstra has a definition for it, which it doesn't call Viraha, but it has a definition called Vipralambhaśṛṅgāra. So in the rasa section, when Bharata is talking about the rasa, he starts with the Shringāra rasa. And there he says Shringāra is of two kinds. One is Sambhoga Shringāra, which is love in union. And one is Vipralambhaśṛṅgāra, which is love in separation. So this is the first time you actually hear of a definition as such for the idea of separation, which is what Viraha amounts to. So as a definition, this is it's more Vipralambhaśṛṅgāra. And after that, this idea of separation between the two protagonists, the Nāyikā and the Nāyikā, this has found multiple expressions across, literature, and especially Alaṅkāraśāstra has exploded to the minutest, human study, to the minutest of divisions. Poetics has exploded so much, but the seed is, of course, comes from the idea of Vipralambha or separation. And then, of course, it goes on, and then it spreads and it becomes a vast canvas of different ideas. So, when you look at the idea of waiting, what exactly is this waiting? And why is she waiting? And why is there so much written on somebody who is waiting for the, Nāyikā? And then why is there so much written on it? Viraha is not just waiting, Viraha is separation. Even if you're not waiting for the lover also, still if you're separated, then it's Viraha. So why is there so much stress on the idea of Viraha? Because, I've been thinking about it actually a lot, and I've always found that, the idea of tapa, which is part of the idea of Viraha, that is the intense, the fire or the longing, the idea of tapa. And if you see the idea of tapa or intense meditation or,
Penance.
kind of penance, both have the same root. Tapa and tapa arise from the same root. So that means that there is, an inseparable link between the two ideas. What you need for tapa. So, I had come across this very interesting definitions of the obstacles for, the spiritual progress, or obstacles towards some yoga or yoga, which have been given in the Yogasūtras. So in that, he gives you 9 obstacles. So there are many he gives you, but what I found very interesting is at least 4 or 5 of them are exactly identical to the Daśakāma avasthas given in the Nāṭyaśāstra. That is the 10 avasthas of separation. When the Nāyikā is separated from the lover and she's in that state of longing and waiting, what does she experience? So if you see, there are so many parallels. Like he talks about alasya, he talks about pramada, distraction, he talks about avirati, that is desire and craving. So the same thing you have in Daśakāma avasthas as chinta and abhilasha. Then here he talks about alasya or lethargy. There Daśakāma avasthas talks about jadata, or a state of immovability. She cannot move. Samshaya, there is a doubt. Here you have chinta in the Daśakāma avastha. And then you have Bhranti Darshana in Yogasūtras. Here you have Udvega and Unmada, where you are in a delusive state, you become delusional. And in Shringāra, she even starts, doing Dushana, or criticism of the elements of nature. So like, she will say the sandalwood paste is burning me, the rays of the moonlight are burning me. Or, the Malaya Maruta is trying to take my life away. It is supposed to be a life giver, being, air, but it's trying to take my life away. So this is a Bhranti she goes through, the same Bhranti Darshana that you have in the Yogasūtras. So like this, it is very interesting how the stages or the obstacles of tapas is the same as the obstacles that the Nāyikā faces when she wants to, be one with the lover. So I don't think there is any difference between the two states, the tapa or the tapa state. It is just that you're looking at one on the material plane and you're looking at the other on the non-material plane. But then when we talk of viraha, it's an emotional idea. So it has to still be on the material plane.
Yeah. So is there a template that is given for the Nāyikā, that she, when in viraha, in separation, these are the emotions that she goes through, or this is how she is? And how is it talked about in the Nāṭyaśāstra?
Oh yes, there is a very, very advanced template. So what is interesting here is many times we tend to, when we look at Puranic or Itihasa based stories, we tend to use the word Nāyikā for the main protagonist of a certain story or a certain idea. But in Poetics or in Alaṅkāraśāstra, if you actually see, the Shringāra Nāyikā is one, she can be called a Nāyikā only in the context of love. Only in like you cannot call Sita and Draupadi Nāyikas unless it's in connection with the lover or connection with the husband. So yeah, Radha is a perfect template for for a Nāyikā, because Radha's context always arises in connection to Krishna. Because the context of Radha is so much intertwined with her love for Krishna, she's an epitome, a classic epitome of a Nāyikā. Sita is not actually, because Sita's, she has many other things. So only in the context of when she's with Rama or in connection to Rama, she can be a Nāyikā. And then many people wrongly use the word Nāyikā for anyone who's a main or a central character, which is not correct, because a Nāyikā is only in connection to the idea of Shringāra or in connection to the idea of the relationship with the man in her life. So based on that, there is an extensive template provided in the Alaṅkāraśāstras, where you have the Nāyikā Prakarana happens on many levels. It is, you have the temperament level, you have the social structure level, the married woman, the unmarried girl, the courtesan, So you have this multiple layers on which the Nāyikā structure happens. And then you have the age-based, then you have the emotion-based, the maturity-based. This very young, newly wedded wife, she's a mugdha. So she's just very, very raw. She doesn't understand anything about love. And then you have the madhya, and then you have the pragalbha, or the praudha, who's like a very seasoned Nāyikā, like Satyabhama, in connection to Krishna. So like this, it's a very complex and a very it's actually it's a psychological study, if you ask me. That is why you have psychological studies in rasa, you have psychological studies in, Nāyikā Prakarana, because it kind of looks at the minutest of their emotional conditions. And the most interesting template you have is actually taken from the Nāṭyaśāstra by the other Alaṅkārikas who followed Bharata. This template is called the Aṣṭavidha Nāyikā Avasthās. That is the 8 different stages or states that a woman or the Nāyikā can experience while she is, in love with somebody. So it actually technically begins with the Swadhina Patika in Nāṭyaśāstra, which is the woman who is in full control of her lover. But if you look at the application in Sahitya, like Gita Govindam, for example, he will start with the idea of waiting. So the second one, which is a Vasaka Sajjika, that is a woman who, when the Vasaka is correct, or when the time is right, she will do Sajja. Sajja here has a double connotation. Sajja is the bed. Sajja is also Sajna. So ornamenting. So she's one who ornaments herself and the bed chamber while she's waiting for the lover to come. So this is actually the starting point of the waiting idea, if you see in the template. And then, she's waiting, she's anticipating his arrival, she's arranging the betel leaf, everything, she's keeping everything ready. And then in the second part of it, he doesn't come. So she goes into this, depression that why has he not come? Which then makes her a Virahotkanthita, or one who's in a state of Utkantita with Viraha. She's choking her. Her Viraha is choking her. And then this goes into the state where she sends her friend. Sometimes, says, gives a letter or something and sends a friend. And then there's a meeting arranged. And she goes there and she finds the lover is not there. And then this Vipralambha, this Nāyikā, she is thinking, did the Nāyikā deceive me? Did the Nāyikā deceive me, or did the Sakhi deceive me? So you have 2 questions there, Nāyika Vanchita and Sakhi Vanchita. So then she gets angry, she comes back home, and then he comes to her with marks of union with another woman. And so she becomes a Khandita. And then she scorns him and she literally throws him out. And then she becomes a Kalaha Antarita because she's regretting the quarrel. So Kalaha Antarita, one who's regretting the quarrel once the Kalaha is done. And then you have the Proshita Bhartruka, which is the 7th one, in which it is, as I always say, Meghadutam. That is a primary example of Proshita Bhartruka, where the Yaksha is banished from Alakapuri, he's in another land and his wife is here, and there is this intense Viraha that both of them are experiencing. So he's a Proshita Pati and she's a Proshita Bhartrika there, because the husband is not in town and she's experiencing Viraha because of that. So that is the 7th Avasthā, which the entire Meghadutam is based on that Avasthā. And then you have the Abhisarika, the one who goes out herself to meet her lover. Or she may through some means see that the lover comes to her. Both are Abhisarikas. So this is an amazingly crafted template to show that entire journey of the seeker while waiting. No matter who the object of, who the object that you're seeking is, whether it is a human lover, whether it is a divine, lover or anything, this is a beautiful template that unfolds the whole process of waiting. And multiple songs, hundreds of padams are actually there, which talk about one or the other of these, 8 avasthas. So this gives you the template for the poetry to get filled into the whole idea. So because each of them has a way of behavior, each of them has a characteristic. So this is what is interesting about the template that you're speaking about.
Yeah. You mentioned the yaksha in the Meghadutam. So it is, the yaksha is also waiting. So it's not just the women who are waiting. There are examples of men waiting as well and experiencing that viraha.
Absolutely. So, in fact, you have multiple Nayakas also in the Alaṅkāraśāstra, like, Shringara Nayakas. This is not the Nayaka given in the Natya text, like the Nāṭyaśāstra doesn't give you Shringara Nayakas. The Nāṭyaśāstra only gives you Nayakas who can be the main protagonists of a drama. So Nāṭyaśāstra will give you Dhirodhata, Dhirodhata, Dhira Shanta, Dhira Lalita, and all these, which talk about the main characters of a play. But it is only post Nāṭyaśāstra that the Shringara Nayaka scheme evolved. Actually, first mentioned in the Agni Puran. After that, only everyone picked it up. So you have the Nayaka can be an Anukula, that is one who has only one wife and is always loyal to that. So there is a beautiful example here. He Bhanudatta in his Rasamanjari, the text of Alaṅkāraśāstra, he gives you Rama as an example for Anukula, because we know only of him as an Ekapatni Vrata, and he's. So in that, Rama says this very beautiful verse where he's telling all these elements of nature. He says, oh path, you need to become tender, softer. He says, oh wind, you need to blow very gently, and sun, you need to become cooler. You need to change your character and become cooler. And he says, oh Dandakaranya, you have to come closer to us. So we wonder why he's saying this. And then he says, because Sita is insisting that she wants to come to the forest with me. So he wants to make her journey as comfortable as possible. So he's appealing to all the elements of nature there. So this is a typical Anukula Nayaka. And then you have the Dakshina. There also Krishna is given as an example, because Dakshina is one who has multiple wives, but who's equally, he treats all his wives equally. He has equal love for all of them. There also Bhanudatta gives you a very beautiful example. He says Krishna, surrounded by all these beautiful wives, didn't want to cast his glance on any one of them, so therefore he closes his eyes. So it's another beautiful example. So like this, you have multiple Nayakas, and they can experience Viraha. You have the Viraha Utkantha, you have the Proshitapati, but it gives you a very big disclaimer in Rasamanjari, where he says all the Nayika Avasthas that the woman experiences, the Nayika experiences, all the man cannot experience, because there is a very strict code of ethics that is followed in the definitions. Like he says, there is a certain way, there is a certain etiquette with which you must treat the Nayika. By how the Nayika behaves towards the Nayika decides whether he's an Uttama or a Madhyama or an Adama Nayika. So
there are categories.
There are categories. There are categories. See, very interestingly, so we don't talk about many of these things because, we think why should we talk about all this? But when you look at the classifications of the Nayaka, there is one called the Vaishika. Now, the Samanya Nayaka is the courtesan. So we think the counterpart of Samanya would be the male courtesan. But no, there they follow the Kama Sutra or the Kama Shastra templates. The Vaishika is one who visits the courtesan. Now, there are many rules for this guy, more than there are no rules for the Samanya Nayika, for the courtesan, but there are more rules for the guy who visits. So he is classified into Uttama, Adhama, Madhyama, depending on his behavior. So there is a very strict code of ethics that are followed in the Poetics texts. So in that is why, keeping that in mind, he says it will create rasa bhasa, or a breaking of the rasa, if the man is uncouth and disrespectful towards the Nayika. And also, all of these avasthas are meant to take the story forward. So he says, when the woman is in Viraha or she's upset, the man should come and pacify her. If he's also in Viraha and she's also in Viraha, how does the story go forward? And unless they are in two different places, like Proshita Bhartrika. So there are certain things that are allowed for the male, for the Nayaka, and some things that are not allowed, in tune with the idea of rasabhasa, and in tune with the idea of how the ideal Nayaka should behave. Because anything that is a template is always about the ideal, right? So, of course, poets had no such reservations. Poets have written the worst things and they've written the best things for the Nayakas. There are Nayakas who have spoken very badly about the Nayika in later literature, where you are writing the songs for a certain purpose. But that will not be accepted by the text of Alaṅkāraśāstra. So there are multiple, and we can see in literature also, they are strewn with examples of male Viraha. Purusha Viraha is a very big element. You can see Rama's Viraha in Valmiki Ramayanam, Rama's Viraha in Tulsidas. In fact, Ramayana Kalpavrukshaṃ, which I'm reading right now and I'm going through, there are beautiful sections of Rama's Viraha there. In very pure Telugu, he says, what is this? I mean, I hope that crazy Rakshasa who carried you away because of some misplaced anger, I hope he has not killed you. So he's lamenting there in Ramayana Kalpavrukshaṃ, and he's asking everything around him. Have you seen her? Have you? And this theme is repeated in multiple times in so many songs, in Annamacharya and so many other poets. So Purusha Viraha is a very big thing, and there are many songs of Purusha Viraha in Padasahitya as well as in Prabandha and in, Nataka. In fact, Dushyanta in Abhinaya Shakuntalam, he says, if I lose sight of Shakuntala, it is like, the Chakravaka birds, which are always in pairs. It is like and Chakravaka birds are blind at night. They are daytime birds. They can't see in the night. So even if the partner gets hidden by the leaf of the lotus, the other bird starts lamenting, thinking it has lost, its mate. So Dushyanta gives this example and he says, that is my condition if I lose sight of Shakuntala even for a minute. So there are very
beautiful examples. Yes.
Beautiful examples of Purusha Viraha are there, in the works.
Yeah. But as we talked about earlier, and you briefly touched upon it, that there is a yogic element there as well to the experience of separation and viraha. There is tapa, there is penance, and because we spoke about it, that when it comes to the Indian arts, you are of course experiencing the physical, but there is this always the idea that you move towards the that one universal consciousness, that transcendence is involved. So from that perspective, how do you see these poetic literary expressions, and even in the performing arts?
No, I think that is definitely there. I mean, there is no doubt that these are all outpourings. See, when you look at Bhakti literature or the literature of love, the love songs of the Bhakti poets, if you see, it is an outpouring of intense devotion and intense pain and longing for the Godhead, for the Ishtadeva. And to the extent that, you conquer this whole idea of male and female also. Because they all juxtapose themselves as women.
Yes.
And if you see Krishna Bhakti, Krishna Bhakti is a major, half of, actually not half, 80% of the Bhakti movement is actually Krishna Bhakti. So if you see the prolific works across the country that have happened during the Bhakti movement, the song, the Pada Sahitya that has happened, 80% is Krishna Bhakti. And in that, of course, we have the idea that Krishna is the only male, Krishna is the only Purusha, and the entire creation is female. The entire creation is Prakriti. So, based on that idea, also the poets have expressed themselves as the Nāyikā again and again, and have longed for the Purusha. But if you look at it on another level, like what I always say is that the Purusha and Prakriti. So there is a lot of issue today about saying that you're always pining for the male. Why should you pine for the man? Why should the woman always be in this position? So these are just words. These are words that we need to understand. that Purusha it means masculine, because the masculine is the only source which gives the bija, and the feminine is the only source that will manifest it. So I look at Purusha and Prakriti as originating reality and manifesting realities. And however much you shout and scream about it, the fact is that the Purusha Tattva only will give the bija, and the Sri Tattva will manifest it.
Yes.
From that point, if you see, this entire waiting idea is from the bija to the complete manifestation of the creation. It is the journey between that, because that which is dormant is the bija, and it has to have the conducive atmosphere for it to sprout, and then it can grow exponentially. I was talking to one of my very close friends who's a wonderful scholar. So he was telling me this, that, the seed has the ability to grow exponentially while it is in a dormant state. Whereas that which is already grown doesn't have the same volatile nature as that which has the ability to seed. So Vipralambha is that seed actually. It is that seed that is waiting to grow exponentially with multiple hundreds of possibilities. And Sambhoga is the fully grown tree. It can't go anywhere after that. No, I said that's what I find interesting. How actually there is only one reality, whether we say Shringara, whether we say Bhakti, or whether we say Tapa, or we say Tapa and all, there is just one question that arises. What is the truth? These are all different ways of approaching the same truth. That one question, the one who has understood, he's a yogi. The others are all interrogating reality all the time. So any medium you can take, it's all saying the same thing actually. Everyone's saying the same thing. Everyone's trying to find an answer to that one question.
So we have, this, like I said in the beginning, the idea of waiting has been expressed in literatures and performing traditions across the world. Do you see this kind of study or this kind of deeper layered meaning to it in other cultures as well?
I think it is definitely there, especially in Asian, thought, whether it's Buddhist or whether it's Zen. We have so many ideas of, this manifesting and originating ideas. There is so much of it in Zen Buddhism also, and then you have it even in the Persian. It's there in many. So, but it's in the form of people's stories, little people's stories. A lot of it comes in the form of that, like, even simple little stories that are told like folk tales. These profound truths, they actually come out in the folktale idea. But I think the way our poetic corpus, the way our Shringāra poetic corpus has exploded threadbare, I don't think anywhere else that is there.
Exploded and also elevated it.
Elevated in the sense, I think it is already elevated, but we have to realize where it is. And it is for us to elevate ourselves.
Yes,
to understand what it is. Because I think, what I feel is, today the way we are looking at the arts, we are trying to dehumanize the arts to some extent. We are saying, okay, this is only a divine thing. This is only for God. But the very important aspect of art is, it is very human also. Because if you do not experience the human, because emotions and all are something which belongs to the human plane. It doesn't belong to the divine plane. Human beings and human interaction only causes emotions. Viraha is an emotion. Pain, longing, tears, laughter, joy are all emotions. And emotions, you cannot negate the human plane and still talk about emotions. So, I always give this beautiful example of a exquisite padam by a poet called Kshetraya in Telugu, where, he talks about, there is this woman, this Nāyikā, who has been waiting for the Nāyikā for a very long time. And he didn't come. So one fine day, the Sakhi comes to her and says, he has come. So she says, Vadaraka popove, don't just go. Don't talk nonsense. Vadela vachene, why has he come now? Oddu ravoddanave, tell him not to come. Then she says, Adi okka yugamu, vere janmam ippudu. She says, that was another era, and now this is another life. My whole life has transformed. I've had a new life, a new birth in the process of waiting for this person to come. And then she explains how many springs. She says, Madhumasamulu. I have spent so many months of spring. 1 year after the other, I waited for him. And then he didn't come. And now I have reconciled to the idea of him not coming, and that I live my life alone, my way. And now he comes. What has he come now for? So it's a beautiful song. Now, I don't even find the need here to make the protagonist a Krishna or a Rama or anybody. Just a man, anybody, a lover whom she was waiting for. Now, for me, the process of growth, that is the beauty of this whole thing. The whole idea, the process of all the things you have on that path to seeking, that itself is divine. The protagonist doesn't even need to be divine, which many a times they are not. So I do not subscribe to the hypocrisy that you make every protagonist a god, because some were not written for the gods. They were written for a human being, for human interaction. Many of the poets wrote for the courtesans to perform. And those are beautiful, exquisite pieces of literature. And they contain deeply psychological, deeply emotional, intensely emotional content. Which
also transformative.
Very transformative.
Yes.
Transformative. As you grow, as you transform, as you change, as you evolve, as you flower, you come closer and closer to having that experience of the divine.
Of the divine, yes.
So it's beautiful actually. If you see the range of poets, each one have handled Viraha in their own way. While for Annamacharya it was all Venkateshwara and Alamelumanga only, and there is no question of anybody else over there. Whereas for Kshetraya it was a woman and a man. Even though they all have the nominal, the makutam or the signature in which they'll have, the name of the deity of the place to which they belong. But that is more a nomination. It is not really the Nāyikā there. So it is very beautiful how each has found their own, avenue to kind of explore this whole idea. And if it's human, if it's divine, it's fine. I mean, it's about communication, and it's about, the intensity of the emotion itself makes it divine. And the other idea of, which I was thinking about, why, when we say why waiting, what is the speciality of this idea of waiting? So when you wait for something or someone, you are giving it your complete attention. No matter what you're doing, your entire concentration and your ekagrata is completely fixed on the object that you desire. That is why you're waiting. So waiting becomes this thing that brings you closer to the truth because of the intensity of the concentration.
It is like meditation.
It's like meditation. You're constantly, no matter what you do, your mind is only on that. And when your mind is constantly on something, it is like you're meditating on it. So that is why the wait is so interesting. That idea of waiting or viraha it is a way of developing the chitta shuddhi towards the desired object.
Yes. Yeah.
That's exactly the same thing you do in a sadhana, right? In a sadhana process. You prepare yourself day and night for the object that you desire. What you desire may be nothing but just to, have some kind of a communion with your Ishta or with the deity. But whatever it is you desire, that becomes your focus.
Mm.
So, and then all that you have to do to prepare yourself to achieve that point of focus, that is the equivalent of the waiting and the viraha.
Right. So, as a practitioner of Indian dance, when it comes to this emotion, performing this emotion, which would be some of your favorite Nayikas to play and perform?
Yeah. So basically, I've always been somebody who enjoys humor. So I have always performed the humorous pieces the best. So therefore, I know in the initial stages of my Abhinaya journey also, I've always chosen and picked pieces which have a funny bone. Like a Nāyikā teasing the Nāyikā and says, like I've done a very bold piece once where the Nāyikā is, looks at the Nāyikā and says, being a man, if you're so reticent, then what happens to me? I'm a woman. You want me to what? You want me to take the first step towards you, is it? So she says something like, so she's making fun of him, which I found, it's hilarious, the piece. And I enjoyed playing it because I love that, that sense of the wacky or the sense of humor. I love that. So I've always enjoyed, and enjoyed the Khandita because there she gets to, make fun of the man, be sarcastic. So I've enjoyed that. Viraha was never actually very much something I would have picked to depict because I just felt not very comfortable with it because I'm not essentially a person who's prone to crying or, any kind of very deep, intense emotion. It's not really me. But from the last few years, I can definitely say I've become closer and closer to the idea of Viraha also because it is giving me a satisfaction in exploring that element which hitherto I actually never experienced. Maybe it could be also because I myself am doing more sadhanas now. I don't know if it is because of that or that may be a very small, that may be presumptuous of me to think it's because of that. But whatever it is, the idea of that intensity is not scaring me anymore. Like, the idea of that, exploring that intensity of viraha, I've actually now begun to enjoy. And this is all due to my exploration of Gita Govindam. Because Gita Govindam is completely viraha. From the first song till the 23rd song, they don't unite. And it's all about their longing for each other. And so recently I choreographed one piece, which is the intense viraha Radha feels. And also there's that element of anger and, pain and scorn because she says the other woman, Ya Ramita Vanamali. She says, who is the one who is making love to my Vanamali? Who is the woman? Other woman. And then she says, she will not burn on a bed of tender shoots. Therefore, indicating that it's Radha who's burning. So she keeps saying that she will not be burnt by, the moonlight. She will not be scorched by the moonlight. Or she will not be attacked by Madana. So while she says she will not be, she's at the same time indicating that I am. And why is Radha? Because Krishna is with her and Krishna is not with her, not with Radha. It is all in her mind. Krishna may not be with the other woman at all. But she is assuming, she's in that state of Unmada, where she's assuming that the reason he's not coming to her is because he's with the other woman. So therefore she works herself up into this, intense frenzy of pain. And it's a beautiful song. It's, in fact, the lesser done songs of the Gita Govindam, a shorter song also, shorter as in the stanzas are still Aṣṭapadi, 8, but there are only 2 lines to each charana. And it is one of the most tricky songs in the Gita Govindam because there is no connection between the first line and the second line. You have to create the connection by understanding what is the subtext that the poet is, indicating there. So taking this up and taking a couple of other pieces, they've kind of really changed my idea of it. Like another Annamacharya song where she says, um, I don't know, Talachina Dehamu Nilavadu. When I think of him, my body cannot hold still. Tananu Talachino Talach. I don't know whether he thinks of me or not. Valanuga Chelimaatalu Vini Vatsuno Rado. Listening to the conducive words of my Saki, whom I sent, I don't know, will he come or will he not come? So she's in that state. And then she keeps remembering everything that happened when both of them were together. And then she says, but now I feel more intense Viraha because all that I'm remembering is not there anymore, and he's not coming. So it's a beautiful song. So while in the past 4 or 5 years, while exploring, these kind of songs, I'm getting more and more drawn towards the idea of Viraha, because just like we spoke, in the beginning about the exponential possibility of growth, this whole Viraha and the waiting journey has that kind of possibility that when you're within the Viraha template, 1,000 things can happen.
Yes.
And 1,000 things can be explored.
Yes.
That is what I'm finding very interesting now, because it's so nuanced.
Yes.
I think we all grow and learn. So, yeah.
No, and it is also the beauty of the Indian arts, or any knowledge tradition for that matter, knowledge stream. It comes from the same yogic chitta bhumi. And therefore, any exploration, artistic expression or exploration actually has the potential to transcend. And then this idea of waiting becomes a metaphor for eventual union with the divine.
Oh, yeah. Waiting is a complete metaphor. Just like, anything actually, any story, Kshirasagara Mathana or anything, just like they're all allegories for, the whole cosmic process of the universe. Just like all these stories are allegories, waiting is also a metaphor. It becomes a complete allegory to realization of the bliss of what is idea of samyoga or communion. It is the process that takes you there. That is why even in rasa, when Bhattanayaka talks about his whole process of realization of rasa, when the moment when the rasa emerges, he gives it the word sakshatkara. Sakshatkara is a word we only use when we in context of the deity, right? But he says rasa. So he basically is telling us rasa is God. In short, rasa is truth. In short, the truth is what we seek.
Yes.
So the truth, Nāyikā, the truth, rasa, they all become synonyms. Because whatever you seek, is the truth, is the ultimate truth. How sincerely you seek it, with how much passion you seek it, how much love and how much devotion you seek it, that decides the intensity of the sakshatkara. So this whole waiting is that. It's been misinterpreted as, a gender thing, and that, oh, why should you wait? Why should this one wait? Why should that one? No, it is not. It is nothing to do with that. It is nothing to do with the mundane idea of why should I wait or why should I not wait. If you do not wait, then you do not experience the joy of the union. All good things you have to wait for it, right? All in good time, as we say.
Whenever I speak to you, or whenever I listen to you, there is this moment of revelation that happens sometimes. You know something, and then you see something in a different light. And today, this part about sakshatkar has been like that. So thank you so much, Anupamaji, for finding time for us today. It's been a pleasure to listen to you.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you and to be on Brhat. So yeah, thank you for having me.
We'll again maybe have a conversation on some of the other elements of Natya or Kavya very soon. And I look forward to having you again here on Bodha.
Will be a pleasure. Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.